Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the PostMoPod. This is our first episode, and here I have
My sister.
my
Me.
sister. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the PostMoPod. This is our first episode, and here I have
My sister.
my
Me.
sister, Jessica.
Yeah, your sister. Me.
And
Jessica.
she is going to be the first guest on our podcast. A little background about what this podcast is going to be. It's basically just telling people stories about who have left the LDS church or who have left and come back or converted into the church. So kind of a little backstory of why I started this. My sister left the church, what did you say, about a year ago?
Yeah, I'd say about a year and a half.
About a year ago.
A year ago. Yeah, I said about a year ago.
And I can notice that my father was having a kind of really hard time with it, so he turned to social media, which I don't think is the best thing to do, to look at other people's experiences that they've had, and all he saw were negative things, and although people do have negative experiences, which we will get into, I don't think that's portrays how it should be leaving the church. So this is kind of more lighthearted, positive, basically just stories and not anything kind of toxic, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's get started. So who are you?
I'm a daughter of God. Just kidding.
Here we go.
Here we go. No, my name is Jessica Howells. My maiden name was Vargas, so I got married. I was married in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or known as the LDS, or known as the Mormon Church. I love animals. I feel really connected to nature and animals. If we're going to talk about like God and everything, that's where I feel if God is real the most. So, I was born and raised Mormon, really had a strong testimony growing up. I feel like stronger than most. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I decided to leave the church because some things didn't really sit right with me, and I did more research, and I fell into a history rabbit hole, which they call it, where you kind of dive deep more into the history of things that you didn't really know. Try to figure it out for yourself if it's what you want for yourself. And that's kind of who I am, and I'm here and living my best life, I'm deconstructing. So it's been the hardest thing I could ever have done, but it's been really rewarding to kind of figure out who I am.
That's also, I think, a misinterpretation, too. What people think you're going to leave the church and then be super duper happy. Mm-hmm. I haven't been happy since I've left, and I've left when I was like 12. So.
Yeah. And so for some people, it can be like a life-changing thing, which I know it has happened for a lot of people are happier, but also for me, it is, I'm still going through it, the hardest thing that you can do, because it's it's who you are.
Your livelihood.
Yeah. It's basically who you are growing up and all these morals and values you're taught in order to live with your family forever. And if you do these certain things, you get to live with your family forever. But I realize I don't believe in those things anymore.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what got you questioning your stance in the church in the first place? Like, was there a specific event that happened? You were like, wait a minute, like what?
Yes. So it's kind of funny. Coffee. If we talk about coffee for a second, I love coffee. Love it. A little too much, And in Mormonism, you're not allowed to drink coffee. It's known as a sin. It's part of the word of wisdom, which is basically kind of like the commandments. And you're not really allowed to drink coffee. Would you say that's accurate?
I'd say,
some people do.
Back then it was accurate.
Yeah. Like, the church changes with the times, which
is beneficial, but at the same time it's
a red flag for me. For me, I was just like, if it's changing with the times, if God's never changing, anyway. So I was like, I love coffee so much, and it brings me so much joy, right? And God brings joy. Like, if the goodness comes from God, why is coffee bringing me joy when it's supposed to be a sin, And so,
Let me ask you this.
what?
So I'm just stirring the pot a little bit to
Okay.
kind of get your response.
Mm-hmm.
So a drug addict can say that drugs bring them joy. An alcoholic can say alcohol brings them joy.
Ooh, that's a very good point.
So what do you think about that? I know what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying, because I don't think coffee is as bad as drug and alcohol.
I was going to say it's coffee.
But that's kind of what it's taught. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. I think they're trying to come from a point of more of an addictive standpoint where I'm trying not to rely on substance, which actually I think is a really healthy thing.
Yeah.
But I digress. I don't know. It was just a cozy thing for me. And so I had a lot of trouble with people telling me that coffee was going to lead me along and down, coffee was going to lead me down the wrong path. And I was like, how's that possible? And I came across this talk saying that coffee will restrict me from getting into heaven.
Like, will restrict you from getting in the temple. And then if you're part of the church, or you know the church teaches, like, the only way to really get to the highest kingdom of heaven is if you're worthy enough to go to the temple, because they do all those different ordinances in there.
Mm-hmm. And you learn how to get into heaven through the temple.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge, you know what a shelf breaker is?
I don't.
So basically you kind of, if you have certain things that don't sit right with you, you put it on your shelf. Like you put it in the back of your head.
Oh, yeah.
And when your shelf breaks, that's when it's like
All
done, you know? So that I kind of put that on the back of my shelf until I just went down this history rabbit hole. I met a friend, a coworker, who used to be a member of the church, and she was like, you need to read more about our history and things I didn't know. And that's when I came across the CES letter. And so the CES letter is a historical document about the history of the church that was put into a different light. I don't know if that makes sense, but like I had no idea. The church painted a very different picture for me growing up than what it actually was. And so then I looked into the essays, which is church resource, and it had some of the same stuff, very lightly, not going into detail, but it had some of the similar stuff, and I couldn't believe it was true. And that's when I bagged up my garments, and I gave church one more shot. And this is why I still believe in God, but I felt like God was speaking to me and saying, like, there's so many things I don't know, and I don't know if God's real, but I do, I feel like I do. Like, I feel like we have a creator somehow. Not to be offensive or anything, but I prayed and I was like, this is my last day going to church. Please give me a sign that if this is what I'm supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And it was a horrible day at church. There was something that someone said I didn't agree with, saying that they were the chosen people. And I was like, well, I don't feel that way. I don't feel any, like, chosen people. Like for God, like, I feel like everyone's unique in their own ways, and God speaks to people in their own journeys, and or not, or, you know. Mm-hmm. And I went home with someone that I knew that I was close with, or not close with. I don't want to say like their names because
just say like friend.
Yeah, I went home with a friend, and that went to church with me because they noticed that I was upset. And so they asked if they can ride home with me, and I said yes. And I was crying, and they were like, why are you so upset? And I'm like, I just don't feel like this is for me. And she's like, tell me, they were like, tell me why, you know? And I was like, well, okay, for example, coffee. I love coffee. I keep saying she, but, and they were like, well, forget about the coffee. And then I was like, well, why was there? Why is it there? Mm-hmm. And they were like, it's for obedience. And I was like, I don't want to live my life that way. And then they said, why the hell did you get married in the temple? You're mocking God.
They said that to you?
They said I was mocking God for trying to look for answers and drink.
You never told me this.
I thought I did.
No.
Yeah, and that was my answer.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was my answer, and I felt like God was saying, this is not for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's absurdity.
Yeah, it was. I came home crying, and I was just like, Then I think that's when we backed our garments, and we were like, this is it. Like, I got our answer. Thank you, God, for telling me that this is not for me. And then you have to deconstruct, well, people don't leave the church because that would be from Satan, but it's from God, and it's just this whole thing that just doesn't work. So.
Gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. So, kind of going off of that, you were married in the temple?
Yes.
With your wonderful husband?
My wonderful husband, who is my best friend, and I love him so, so very much.
And you
We're
guys,
on the same wavelength right now.
Because of the church, you guys wouldn't have met.
Exactly.
And so I just want to say or ask, who had the doubts first in your marriage and who kind of brought it up?
Me.
Really? I kind of expected that.
Yeah.
How was his response? Like, was he feeling the same thing, or was he kind of like, I gotta think about it?
At first, he was like, I kind of gotta think about it. And then I was showing him the history that I found, and he agreed with me and was like, I don't want to do this either. And so I was very, very lucky, because you can make, mixed family faith marriages work. I believe in that. I believe that it would be very hard, and in a lot of cases, I'm very privileged to have him on the same page as me. Yeah. Yeah,
because he grew up LDS too. His family's LDS.
He served a mission in Japan. I served a service mission in San Diego. And, we met through BYU, Idaho, and we met through the church. And in that time in my life, it was perfect. It was meant to be.
Yeah. So how has leaving the LDS church affected your personal beliefs and identity?
That's a really good question. I believe more now in energy and the way people give off energy, even like animals, plants. I believe I'm more open to things I never would have been open to. I guess I'm not really I don't want to say the word blind, because I don't feel like some people are kind of like blindly following the church, which is fine. And if that makes them happy, that's great. Oh, I just touched this. That's great. But I do believe the church does a lot of harm in the blindness of, I don't know how to explain that. But I'm not really answering your question. So
it's fine.
I believe in energy more now, and in nature and in Mother Nature, which I find is really weird. I've had a lot of really weird spiritual experiences.
Notice how it's named Mother and not Father Nature.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Just saying. Mother. And that's a whole nother topic you go into about Heavenly Mother in the Mormon church. Once she wasn't really supposed to be talked about. Other times she says she is. They say she is. I don't know. But I really feel... I feel lost a lot of the times because it was my entire identity.
Guys, when I tell you, literally looking behind the camera right now, there's a picture of Jesus in the corner, the temple in the middle, a quote on the side, and then a picture of her and Jesus right there. Like, she was in a freaking model of somebody kneeling with Jesus.
Yeah.
And Book of Mormon.
And this was my room. This was my room growing up.
And honestly, would I say it was a shocker? No.
No?
Because, well, I feel like we talked about it often.
We talked about it often, yeah.
I mean, I was the first one in the family to kind of be like, guys, what are you guys doing?
Oh yeah.
You know, I was like,
That's a really funny story actually. One time she went through a temple opening where they open the temple to the public to see what everything is inside, and she saw the altar and she looked at us and she was like, nope.
yeah, I think
Not for me. Which is okay.
I went up there with the utmost respect too. I'm still am just trying to figure out what's true and what's not. You know, I'm gonna be totally honest with that. And I was in Idaho. It was one of the temple openings, and I went with my grandma and my mom. And they were just like, "How was that?" And I was like, "It was so great." But then we went to General Conference, like a few months after, and then it got brought up because they were rebuilding the Salt Lake Temple.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Mom was like, "Yeah, remember you walked through one of those?" I was like, "Yeah," and I think that sealed the deal for me on the church.
Oh yeah. Which is totally fine. And if I always say disclaimers because, you know, I always want to be respectful of people, and, you know, if someone's going to get offended, you know, I apologize, but also it's not on us, and this is our experiences and how we feel spiritually, physically, mentally, all of the above.
Yeah. And once again, I think that's why I made it, because it's literally just people's experiences, so there's nothing you really can judge. Mm-hmm. I feel like unless you are judging, then that's just the type of person you are, and that reflects badly on you. Mm-hmm. But we mean it with the utmost respect. And, I mean, we're not talking about sacred things that happen in the temple. We still have families that are practicing in the church, and we respect them. And I respect religions as a whole, so I'm not going to go and talk about things that happen in their sacred places.
Yeah, if something's really sacred to someone, I believe that should be held as a safe place for them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As with anything for anyone. But if people are gonna talk about a different experience, saying how that wasn't sacred for them and that was a terrifying experience, I believe a safe place should be held for them as well. Mm-hmm. So both sides.
Yeah. All right.
Did I answer your question?
I don't really remember, but it's fine.
My identity? I don't really know who I am. I'm a daughter of God. Just kidding. That's kind of mocking the church. Oop, don't put that in there.
I think if the God is real, everybody's a brother and sister or daughter.
Yeah, I just feel it's the hardest thing you can do, but it has brought me a lot of freedom and joy in figuring out who I am without the church.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
If you could have everybody know one thing you've learned outside of the church, what would it be?
I think...
Whether they're still in the church, outside of the church, like literally anybody, like what would you tell them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe that... Oh, let's see. Okay, so respect for both sides of each person's story is so important, and it all comes down to love. Like, really, truly, I know that sounds cliche, but loving whoever, you know, is, how do I say this? In the church or not in the church, loving completely, unconditionally people for who they are and all their quirks and their fun, spunky selves. And I think that it just comes down to loving people and realizing that. I think the biggest thing that I realized that doesn't go along with the church anymore is that we only live once. And I really believe that living in the moment is so crucial for our happiness. And that's what I've learned, is truly letting go, living in the moment, not worrying about the future. Because if you're worrying about the future and the past, there's no progression. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I feel like, truly like living in the moment and loving everyone you come across, no matter where they come from, what background they have, religious or not. Like, truly just giving them love and respect.
That's good. Mm-hmm. What are some aspects from the LDS church that you truly appreciate and sometimes even still carry with you?
The community.
Yeah.
I miss the community a lot. I had really good leaders.
Our ward
was
was
We're
amazing.
California Mormons. Don't know if that changes anything, but there has been a stigma with California Mormons.
Is there?
Yeah.
No way.
That they're just more chill, laid back. Maybe not everyone.
Go to Utah.
I know Utah's different. So Utah is a lot different. I've heard in the podcast I listen to, but like outside of Utah, Mormonism I think is a little different.
I can see that.
Yeah, just because I think there's
The
environment's different and everything. But I really miss the community. I miss the structure of having the Book of Mormon to be true. Because I don't believe in it anymore. And I have this beautiful Book of Mormon, and having that and coloring it and writing it, it's so weird, but I miss that. Like, I miss that a lot. And, you know, who's to say, like, oh, well, why don't you just go back and...
Yeah, I was literally about to say, like, what's stopping you from going back and just, like, revisiting whether... I mean, you don't have to agree with past things that you've said, but just looking at it from a different perspective.
It's because I'm still hurting. And the history of how the Book of Mormon was written didn't sit right with me. Like, it was painted in a different picture than what it really was to me growing up. So I can't imagine it differently.
Yeah. What are some challenges that you faced, if any, when leaving the church, whether it was internal or external?
Say that again.
What are some challenges you faced, if any, when leaving the church, whether it was internal or external?
What are some challenges I faced? Like internal or external challenges?
Yeah. So, like, say, internally you were just fighting with yourself, I don't know, or, like, external.
Yeah, I thought I was sinning. I thought I was going to hell. I thought that I wasn't ever going to be with my family again. Internally, I painted this picture for me that was unrealistic. And I just felt shame and guilt, like I was doing the wrong thing, even though I could have gotten an answer saying I was doing the right thing. And in that, it in itself comes with the teachings of the church.
Yeah. I'd say for me that's kind of the same thing, because, like, I've been doubting the church for a very long time. How long would you say?
I'd say ever since...
I was baptized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's your story, too, which you should share.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I haven't shared the story. I think I only shared it with Jessica. So, I got baptized as every 8-year-old does who has grown up in the church.
That's the age where you're held accountable. Yeah. They say.
But also, other churches baptize when they're babies. You know?
Yeah.
So can't relate.
Everyone has their quirks.
Exactly. Everyone has their things. So I was baptized by my dad in our stake center. And I had an amazing support system there. Our babysitter next door went, and she had a crazy spiritual experience. She was bawling her eyes out, couldn't stop. Good for her. After I got baptized, I got this pit in my stomach. And my hands started to turn red. And I felt really, really sick. Like my body was literally just rejecting what happened. And I didn't want to say anything, and you want to know why? Because I felt like they were just going to be like, oh, it's the spirit. Like, you're just feeling the spirit. You just don't know how to take it in. You're feeling the spirit right now. Yeah. But I knew it wasn't. I just, like... And I think even Mom asked me when I was, like, standing there. She was getting me dressed into my baptism dress. And she was like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I think that's when I knew my body was just physically rejecting it. And then ever since then, I was just like, whoa. Is my story of kind of when I knew, I guess. Okay, back to you.
Okay.
Have any relationships been affected with you leaving the church? This can mean positive or negative, literally with anyone, whether it's our parents, me, other siblings, Noah's parents. Is it okay if I say his name? I can bleep it out.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure Noah's my husband. Yes, both positive and negative. In fact, the most positive interactions I've had has been with my family.
That's good.
The most. And it's brought me, I feel like, so much closer because I have a lot of questions and I want to be open and talking about it. And I am so privileged and lucky to have the parents that I have. Even though they don't understand sometimes where I'm coming from, they understand with love. And that's what it goes back to when I say that's what I've really learned is it's all about love and patience and respect for each other, despite wherever anyone comes from.
Yeah, and I think it's really helpful too that our dad was a convert. He didn't grow up in the church, so he knew what it was like before he joined the church and, living his life. And also our mom, she grew up in the church, I'd say more strictly.
Yeah.
But she's the most understanding person I've ever met in my life.
And she doesn't blindly follow. I mean, she figures out answers for herself. Yeah. She, and this is for her to say, but there was a story she told me about what happened during COVID, and the prophet came out and said, and encouraged people to get vaccinated. And our brother has autism, and so
not severe though.
Not severe. He's high functioning, but he has on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And my mom felt very sick about getting this vaccine for my brother for some reason. And I don't know if studies have shown with autism.
They showed that men at that age with, like, there were some side effects to the vaccine.
Yeah. And so my mom felt so sick about it, and I believe that was literally God telling her not to follow what the prophet was saying.
And she didn't.
You know?
I mean, she got the vaccine because she felt comfortable with herself, but it was like my brother, she was just like, this something doesn't feel right, and she didn't do it.
And so that's why I respect her so much, because she's really doing it for her happiness and her health, and what's most important for her is she's like ultimate mama bear, like
Crazy.
Ultimate mama bear.
I had a dream last night.
She's so a ninja.
I had a dream that I was playing Among Us. This is so off topic.
You were playing Among Us. I saw you on Discord.
Before bed.
You were playing for like 5 hours.
It's just open on my
Side
computer.
note. Okay, sorry.
Anyways, I had a dream. This is going back to the mama bear thing. And it was in our house, but I was like in the, like, FaZe Clan?
No.
It's like a video game community. Like, they play video games professionally, and they're, like, in a team.
Okay.
Anyways, I had a dream that I was in one. I don't know if it was FaZe or whatever, but the other hub was in the parents' room upstairs, and they were playing Among Us. And then I was downstairs playing Among Us because I was kind of like the odd one out. This is so off topic. And I killed people because I was the imposter. And then they came downstairs and they kicked me out of FaZe Clan. The people who were in FaZe Clans. And Mom was livid. She ran upstairs and started yelling at them, "Get all of your butts downstairs right now, or else I'm going to do it for you." And she legit, like... Anyways, that was my dream.
No, that just goes to show you my mom's personality.
Well, she's not crazy.
She's not crazy.
She's lovely.
She's lovely. Yeah. And she's been a mom for a lot of other people who haven't had mother figures too, which I think has been something really great to see. But also going back to that question is, my family has been super positive, and I've been more closer than ever, I think, with my family and my parents. The people that I served with on my mission still love me, but they have told me that, I'm not saying names, but they've told me that I'm really selfish for thinking for myself. That was really hard to hear. Or you know what you're doing, you know that this isn't God's way. And they treat me a little differently than what I'm used to. We don't really talk anymore, and which sucks because I was doing what I could in the moment for myself, and I think that's so important. I think truly being authentically you, wherever that is the way that you're supposed to live your life. Which is something I've also learned too. But yeah, like I have a couple other people who are members of the church who are still my friends who are like, you can ask me anything if you want. And, just really, really down to earth people who still love me for me. But there are a couple who think I'm not doing the things I should. And that's okay. That's for them to think. They think they're they have the truth and they're living their life the right way and they think I should live my life that same way, but they still love me regardless. I think. I hope. It's regardless, I am really happy, and I mean, I'm struggling, but I know it's worth it because of the connections I've made with my family and other people.
Yeah.
And having these deep conversations is honestly so important because it's builds self-awareness.
Yeah. I think it's also important to mention, like, at least from the LDS standpoint, it's been taught that, you know, people are going to leave the church in the latter days. Mm-hmm. That's what's said. But I think people in the LDS church are having a hard time with that, if they do believe that. I personally don't believe that, but if they do believe that, people are going to leave the church in the latter days, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think they are scared. And I think that's why people hate on people who leave so much. Because I only say if I go to another podcast, for example, what's a podcast? Mormon Stories.
I
feel like that's one of the ones that are very well known.
Oh, so good.
Around.
Love
the people in the comments that are hating are LDS members.
Yeah. And some of the things they say are horrid.
So my thing is, if you are LDS and it says, and you believe what it says, that people are going to leave the church in the latter days, aren't you happy? Because that means it's coming. You know what I mean? And it teaches it. So why are you mad if it teaches it? It's literally just confirming your belief. Mm-hmm. Even though I don't think it's confirming it. I think people leave the church no matter what. You know what I mean? Yeah. But you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do. That's a good point.
Okay. I'm interested in this because I don't think I've ever asked you about this. Okay. Did you get your patriarchal blessing?
Yes, I did.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about how that experience was, or like even something?
Yeah, it was super spiritual. I thought at the time that I was getting direction directly from God, and he was talking to me kind of it's almost like a fortune telling thing, basically kind of how they map out your life and what it could be if you follow the commandments. And I thought it was incredible. But one thing that always bothered me is that it described me in a way that the church wanted me to be. Does that make sense?
A little bit.
So I never thought I would ever be that person that was said in that writing. So, like, you know how it says, okay, so, like, for example, I'll get married in the temple. I did. I'll go on a mission. I kind of did.
You did.
I did. A service mission. Because I had some health issues, and so I served a service mission, which was really hard for me because I wanted to go proselyting, but there's a stigma, too, in the culture of Mormonism with missions.
If you are LDS, I just want to say this really quick. If you are LDS and think that a service mission is not a mission, like, go do some little studying and self-reflection.
Yeah.
Because I
was about to.
Because, I mean, I think service missionaries are the most important missionaries.
Yeah, because it's serving, it's not proselyting, it's not focusing on numbers, you know. It's more of being authentically there for people and doing work. I really had a good mission. I had great companions. Mm-hmm. I met some incredible people in the temple, and that I know I was supposed to meet even to this day.
Yeah.
And the church gave me that. And also, I don't know if we want to go into this, but the church saved my life.
Go talk about it.
So, that's also something I have a hard time with because I thought I saw a bug.
Don't say that.
I'm not saying you could cut it out. I swear I could have. It's fine. We're fine.
What? Okay, go on. The church saved your life.
The Book of Mormon actually saved my life, and my mom kind of made me realize this, that I was in the hospital for some mental illness issues, and I ended up trying to take my life, and that wasn't the first time, but I know that's heavy, but I was in a super depressed state, and the only book I could read was the Book of Mormon, and it literally got me through every single day, and I don't regret it because I'm still here. You know?
Yeah.
And in that time now, like that time there, that was perfect for me. But I feel like I'm strong enough now to where I can really do a deep dive and deconstruct and think for myself.
Yeah.
You know, and rely on myself, which is, I think it's important to have self-reliance instead of believing in something you can't really see. I don't know if that makes, you could cut this out, but like, I think that putting your trust in something else rather than yourself teaches you, it can be really harmful because you don't necessarily trust yourself enough to make decisions without a higher being. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
like you're just super extremely reliant on that.
That's why I say, and that works for people, and that's great, but that's why I say for me, I felt strength enough to really look and do a deep dive into church history and kind of think for myself, and the church got me there, which I don't regret.
That's good.
But I know I'm leaving because the lifestyle just doesn't fit me anymore. And I think that's okay. You know, and I want to give credit to the church, too, for saving my life.
Yeah.
You know, because that's huge.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have different experiences. A lot of people the church causes a lot of harm to the LGBTQ community and the suicide epidemic that's happening right now. And
I'm not too educated on that, so I don't.
Yeah, there's a study, I think, by John DeLynn. I'm not entirely sure. And we can cut this out, too, but I keep saying that.
I'm not going to cut anything out.
But I think it's a certain percentage of LGBTQ members of the church who have had suicidal thoughts, and it was a pretty big percentage. Just because they feel like they can't progress in the church and live with their families together, so they'd rather be dead. And that goes for a lot of LGBTQ members.
I was about to say, David Archuleta, his song "Heaven Forever" or something like that. What's his song?
Go to hell together. Yeah.
Dude.
Oh my gosh, made me cry.
I just discovered that like a week ago.
Did you really?
Yeah. And I was listening to it, and I was just sitting there like, oh my goodness. And his mom, so strong for that. Dude.
She left for him.
I know. And I was talking to my parents about this, and I'm going to go on a rant here. Sorry, okay. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
One thing I really struggle in the church is the three kingdoms. I always have. Even when I was in primary, like, I would ask my teachers, because we had a lesson about the three different kingdoms, and I said, like, well, what if I'm bad and I go to the third kingdom and my family's in the first kingdom, even though we were sealed together in the temple forever? And the leader told me, no, you'd be in the third kingdom. Like, that doesn't matter. So,
really?
This is also important to bring up, too. And I
did not know that.
I think it's important to bring up because I feel like a lot of people leave the church because of man.
Yeah, like,
and I had
people.
I had to sit back and think, okay, is it God or is it man? You know, okay, that mistake was by man.
And you're so young, too.
Yeah. So, and then me and my mom were talking about it, and we're kind of doing a deep dive in it, because I was like, okay, technically speaking, if you commit sin in the church, you can repent, unless it's killing somebody. You can repent for what you've done. So say if somebody who was raped as a kid, and if if they're a rapist with true intent in the church, true intent, repent and ask for forgiveness with true intent, like they've changed themselves, they can be in the highest kingdom of God.
Which is, I believe,
And so
is
I was,
not fair.
I was
at all.
asking, I was like, would you want to be in the highest kingdom of God with a person who has done that? And she was like, no. So okay. So we did a deep dive, and we know somebody in our church who has committed a heinous crime, and taken lives of some people, and almost took the life of their own mother.
Mm-hmm.
And they're currently in prison,
Mm-hmm.
as they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were researching it, and apparently you can be forgiven for killing somebody.
Really?
You have to go to
like on the
the
church
first
website?
presidency, and the prophet has to approve you. So I don't know how much that happens.
No
That's
way.
got to be really, really rare.
Yeah.
But say, technically speaking, that person can make it to the highest kingdom of God. And that
Ooh.
doesn't... I literally just got goosies.
Yeah, I got goosies too.
That
does
doesn't
not
sit right with
me.
me.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's one thing that I really, really struck with the church.
Yeah, that... And also, there's a lot of sexual assault that gets swept under the rug a lot in the church.
I feel like, honestly, though...
That's every
yes,
church.
Every church.
Every church.
Every church.
Every single church. I feel like it's okay to be angry at God sometimes. Because that's just human. But, you know, who knows if God's real? We don't know. No one knows. No one knows.
Yeah. I don't know. Can I talk about, beep out his name?
Yeah, I want to tell them my experience about what happened to me with
Him.
Yeah.
Okay, so, she was about to tell a story, but was one of my best friends in the church's father.
Mm-hmm.
And, go ahead.
So I got pulled into... One thing I think the church needs to change is the policy on talking to priesthood holders in closed doors, like your bishop or their counselors. I had someone pull me aside.
And they weren't even the bishop, mind you.
Yeah, they weren't
even the bishop.
They weren't the bishop, and pulled me aside, and we were doing a temple recommend interview. And the temple recommend interview is basically questions you have to answer in order to get into the temple via a temple recommend. So there is a question saying, do you follow the law of chastity? And the law of chastity is basically, do you not have sex? Like no sexual relations at all. And he branched off that question and started asking me if I touched myself. And it was just me and him in the room. And I was like 12. But I was so... I thought... I don't want to say brainwashed because I don't think that people... I was so in the church. That's a better way to say it.
Involved.
I was so involved in the church that I thought that this was normal. And that's kind of what happened to me in the temple too, where I went through the temple, and it's a very interesting ceremony. Some people think it's very spiritual, some people think it's scary, everyone has a different experience. Mm-hmm. And I had a leader that told me like she was crying and people thought she was saying like feeling the spirit, but she was like crying because she was like panicking.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So everyone has a different experience. I started to panic a little bit. And I had so many people there, and I put this back on my shelf. Mm-hmm. And was like, if all these people I look up to are here, mm-hmm. then this is what I'm supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And then I took a step back, and I was like, okay, no, mm-hmm. This is not for me. Anyway, so going back to, yeah, I just went off around right there. But,
okay.
Yeah, it was a very horrible experience, and I thought it was right.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And we could put disclaimers on, like, sensitive, this is sensitive,
trigger
warning, sensitive topics.
Yeah. Yeah, we will. Anyways, can I go back to the guy that met with her? He I don't have hatred towards anybody.
In general?
In general. I really don't. And I think, but this guy in the church is not the greatest.
No.
I think people get power trips. So if they have, and mind you, after that conversation, he got released. You realize that? He was only a part of the was it called a high council? What is it called?
Young men's.
No, he was.
Was it high council?
Bishopric.
A bishopric. Okay.
He was part of the
Which
bishopric.
is leadership in the church.
And he only lasted like 2 or 3 months. So,
yeah.
That was man's own fault. That wasn't, I don't think, the church.
No, yeah, that was definitely, a human error. Everyone's human.
Yeah.
But, human do bad stuff.
Do bad things.
Human do bad.
I want to read something really quick. So I went. Sorry, I'm moving. Actually, put it in here so I don't forget. I went to. So I'm telling you guys, I'm trying to figure out what's true and what's not, and I have been for a very long time.
Which is totally okay, and what everyone needs to do for their lives. Everyone. We all have questions of like, what is life?
Yeah.
That's literally the whole point of life.
Yeah. So I went to Institute, which I never do.
Yeah.
I've never.
I told you
before.
not to go.
I was glad that I went.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. But
so this is a talk from President M. Nelson's Choice for Eternity, and it was given on Sunday, May 15th, 2022. So if you guys want to go look it up and see what I'm talking about, it
it when he was the prophet of the church?
Yeah, 2022.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. So this is the prophet of the church.
Look how this is laid out. What does that look like?
Scriptures.
But it's a talk.
Why is it laid out?
Don't know.
Like that?
Isn't that odd? That was my first what? Why is it laid out like a scripture? Like that would it looks like that would be like in the Bible or the Book of Mormon.
Yeah. I love how you took notes too. Yeah. Interesting, Lily.
I did take notes.
Okay, wow.
So I was talking to Mom about this, and she was like, "That's weird. Like, what the heck?" But I think it was because the guy who was doing the meeting probably laid it out that way. I hope that's how it is, and I hope it's not given out like this, because that'd kind of be misleading a little bit.
Yeah, very misleading.
Anyways, I digress. So there's a part in this, and I talked to my mom about everything spiritual, and she's very open to talking about it too, and she knows that I'm delivering it with the respect, so she gives me respect, So there was one thing in here, and I asked her, I was like, do you think God loves everybody the same? And she was like, yeah, God loves everybody, So I was like, okay, so this is from the prophet. And it says, God has a special love, I underline special love, for each person who makes a covenant with him in the waters of baptism. And that was rough.
Ooh.
That was rough.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, how does he love...
Just proves my point.
Are you gonna, and I told my mom, I was like, are you gonna tell a kid that you have a different special type of love from another kid? And she's like, no, I would never do that. I was like,
this is coming from the prophet that is supposed to be a spokesperson for God.
And I think baptism is important in any church.
Yeah.
But I don't think God will love you more or have a special type of love.
That's exactly what I think when I had that experience when they were saying, going back to that when I was praying and being like, is this for me? And someone said, we're the chosen people. I'm like, no, we're not. That's exactly what I mean.
Who are they to judge that?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
I can't. And me and Jessica were talking about this. I'm kind of leaning towards in my belief that there's no such thing as religion. And that's hard for me because I kind of like having a structural thing to go off of.
You like having hope.
Exactly. And I think religion was made by man to benefit man. So, but what I'm saying,
Mic drop. Mic drop. That was chef's kiss.
Religion was made way before our time.
Oh, 100%.
So I'm not saying that prophet, what's his name, Nelson?
Mm-hmm. President Nelson
is wrong. I think maybe if we look back to the start of it, Joseph Smith, that's kind of a hot topic. I don't know. I haven't researched that enough, so I can't say anything about that. But I think the prophet, I think he believes it full-heartedly and is doing everything with good intent. I just feel that from him. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, that might be a hot take for some people.
I was gonna say.
But that's what I believe. Because I don't know. We met him in person. We had the opportunity to meet us in person.
Yeah.
And I just felt like he wasn't... I mean, a lot of people in the church aren't bad people, but I feel like he's not a dictator. Also, the leader for this was just weird, dude.
Was it someone I know?
I don't know. I don't even know his name.
Oh.
But this is just another thing by man. Should I say it? It's kind of like...
Well, yeah, because that's what the church teaches, so go for it.
Well, I think this is man.
You think this...
Oh, 100%.
But the fact is that they say that they speak for God. That's the thing.
Well, this is the leader from the Institute.
Oh, so he wrote this.
No, he wrote this talk.
President Nelson.
But what I'm about to say
is from
the guy.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Which can always get taken out of context
Yes.
when someone teaches.
Yes. So, I think this guy is, as most LDS members are, kind of more very conservative, right-leaning. So we were talking about, I don't even remember how it got brought up, but he was talking about this old religious practice church, this religion that there was, and they were a sex religion. And...
An institute?
Yeah, he was teaching this, and he was saying that, and I think there were religions like that, honestly. I mean, I think...
Those are called cults.
Okay, yeah. Whoops.
We can go deeper into that. We want to, but I don't know if that's... No,
okay. So he was saying, yeah, this religion, this cult, I guess you could say, they would have sex. And that was their way of rejoicing, celebrating, praising God. Or their gods, because they had multiple. And what they would do is that they would get pregnant, because this was later in life. They didn't really have protection, and they didn't know what protection was. And they would sacrifice their babies. But, so he was very specific. I'm going to put this between my legs so I can show you guys. There was this statue that was like this. And they would put fire underneath the hands. I think I might get taken down for this, but if I get demonetized and whatever. It was holding like this, and they would put a fire underneath the hands, and it was metal. So the metal would heat up the hands, and they'd put the babies on the hands. Awful. Okay, awful, and we were talking about this in Institute, but do you want to know what this guy said?
Why were you talking about this in Institute, though?
I don't know.
Tell me what the guy said, because...
He said, and I quote, I wrote it down, guys. At least they let the babies be born.
I don't want to cuss, but the frick.
And...
Oh my...
I said, would that really be better than abortion?
Yeah, that's actually absurd. I'm sorry.
So,
why the heck were you talking about this in a Mormon institute? I've never had a conversation like that in an institute.
And he was like, everybody around him was just like, yeah. Yeah,
see,
and I was like looking.
That's the blind part that I'm talking about.
And he was making, I don't know, it's like he knew that I was like, what the heck? Because he was just like, kept looking over at me, and I was just like, my mouth was open.
She's very expressive.
Yeah.
Like, if she doesn't like you, you'll know.
But, well, like, I can't hide my expressions. I really can't. I try everything in my being. But I was just like, what are you saying right now?
That's actually insane. I'm sorry.
But also
I don't even tolerate that.
preface that that's not the church's teachings. I think he was just kind of like
going off on a tangent. That's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, but that was my experience with that.
That just makes me feel really sick, actually.
Okay, going back to you.
Oh dear. Okay.
Have you found that there are any common misconceptions or stereotypes about people that leave the church that you've picked up on, whether it's people who are still in the church, out of the church, or who have never joined the church?
Yes.
And what are those?
100%. The most common misconception about people leaving the church is that they're not happy. That they can't find real joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is...
there are receipts of prophets talking about that, too.
Mm-hmm. There is.
Where Would You Go by President Packer, I think. Or Elder Packer or something like that. I'm not 100% sure if he was the one who said it, but what will you do, where will you go when you leave the church? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find who I am.
Period. Ding. Might click to that. Yeah. I agree. I've seen that too. I think
it's demonized in the church. Yeah. Where it's not a good thing. Mm-hmm. Because
that's why I get confused. Oh, I can't. Sorry.
Yeah.
They literally teach that people are going to leave, but then they do that when people leave. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know. I can't.
That's a really good point, though. Yeah.
So have you, how have you navigated having conversations with people who are in the LDS church about your beliefs, if any, or do you kind of avoid that?
I avoid it right now. I could talk to my family about it, mm-hmm. and we can have a respectful conversation.
Yeah.
But friends, some friends, mm-hmm. not all, mm-hmm. think I'm looking at anti-Mormon literature when I'm actually just looking at people's stories and experiences. Which is the whole point of life.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And to acknowledge the harm and to acknowledge the bad things that are happening, but also to acknowledge that sometimes harmful things can be a good thing to other people, meaning, like, the church can be really, really harmful, mm-hmm. but the church really changed my dad's life. Mm-hmm. So there's that, too.
Yeah.
So there's both sides.
Yep. Last question. What's a powerful or spiritual experience that you've had in the church? Your most powerful or spiritual experience that you've had in the LDS church?
Well, I've had a lot of traumatic ones.
Okay, let's try and find a good one.
I'm trying to find a good one. I have a lot. My best friend was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and I had a dream before she got diagnosed with cancer that she got cancer. And I texted her. This is when I was really active in the church, and mm-hmm. there's this before school, this place called seminary you go to where high school students will go and, you know, do a Bible study in the morning before they go to school. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like required in the church. And she didn't show up to seminary one day, and I texted her and I was like, hey, are you okay? I just had a dream you got cancer. And she was like, yeah, I'm fine. I just hit my head really hard, but I'll be okay. Because she got hit in the head with a volleyball. Because she was a really good volleyball player. And I think a week or so later, she got diagnosed with cancer. And I knew it. But in the dream, it was white everywhere. Like it was going to be okay, even though she passed away. But my mom was saying that God gave me a vision to prepare me. Yeah. So that was a huge spiritual experience. And, you know, people ask me, like, we have all these spiritual experiences. Why are you leaving? I'm like, I don't deny those spiritual experiences at all. I believe in them fully. It's just I'm in a different wavelength of my life, and I believe I could still have spiritual experiences with the way I'm living. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Also, at the time, I think your mental health was at the start of the decrease. No, because
it was a bad.
Yeah. So I think that was literally, like Mom said, trying to prepare you. Because if you probably found out of nowhere, I think.
Oh, it would have been miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of
crazy.
A lot of trauma that came with it, but a lot of really crazy things that happened that I couldn't explain.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's the end of our PostMoPod. Oh. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Who else would I have as the first guest?
Cheers.
Thank you guys for listening. And if you guys have any questions, either comment them or go to our social medias and ask those questions. Or if you know somebody who would like to be on this podcast and has stories, whether you're no longer LDS, converted into the LDS church, or left, or in the LDS church left and came back, we'd love to have you on it and talk to you about your stories. Mm-hmm. So yeah, all of our socials, they're all PostMoPodcast, or on TikTok, PostMoPod. Go follow those. And also, I'd like to leave up on the scenes. This is going to be my ending little thing. Like it says in John chapter 8, verse 7 and 11, he who is without sin cast the first stone. So think about that before you judge someone, personal stories or experiences, or comment anything negative.
There you go.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye.